Hello, everyone, and welcome to AI Agents Hour, brought to you by Mastra. I'm Shane. Normally, I am joined by my co-host, Abi, but he decided that he would rather be in Japan, and honestly, I can't blame him. But today we do have a full show. We're going to be here for at least the next hour, but sometimes we run long, so, buckle up. Today, we're going to be talking about what's happening in AI. We're going to be talking to someone from the Mastra team on what they're working on, get to know them a little bit, and talk about a few breaking changes coming up in Mastra. I think it's going to land tomorrow. So we'll talk through what some of those things are. And then we will end it with some storybook time. And so if you stick around, you will find out what that means. As always, you can follow me on Twitter if you're not already, or X, whatever we call it these days, smthomas3. And if you are watching this and you haven't given Mastra a star on GitHub, please find Mastra, give us a star. We appreciate that. But let's start by talking about some of the things that are happening in AI. So today, some of this stuff is actually from last week, but we haven't talked about it yet, so we'll bring it up. And if you do have questions or comments on any of the things we talk about today, whether you're watching on X, LinkedIn, YouTube, just drop a comment. I'll see them. I'll try to answer a number of them. Can't say we get to them all, but we try to get to most of them. But first story is that Meta delays Llamas 4 Behemoth, citing engineering hurdles. But I think what it really comes down to is, sounds like they're delaying the release of the Behemoth model, and it does seem like maybe they're running into some issues with the scaling laws. Scaling models isn't just more data leads to more compute, more better models, better generations. So it seems like there's some architectural fundamental challenges they're hitting. No release date as far as I've seen, but it seems like they're aiming for maybe the fall timeline. So just something to note there. Hugging Face has shipped a free virtual computer agent that's supposed to kind of be an alternative to OpenAI's Operator or Claude's computer use. Always cool to see things come out of Hugging Face. It's a little bit more community owned and open source, so I like to see that. Google's been spotlighting Project Astra and Mariner, which I'm not that familiar with, but Astra is kind of supposed to be this multimodal, all-encompassing agent, kind of like the one agent to rule them all. And Mariner is really supposed to be kind of just an engine for automations, browser use type things. So interesting to see that all the big players are really talking about different web agents that they're building. 2025 is really shaping up for the year of agents, or at least at minimum, all the big companies talking about how they're building with agents. We talked about last week at the end, OpenAI debuted Codex, which is like the multi-agent mode in ChatGPT. So you can essentially ask it to do something. It can actually create a PR for you if you connect it to your repo. I'm curious though, chat, are you using Codex? Have you tried it out? What are the results you're getting? I have not used it a lot internally yet, but a few others on our team have, and getting some mixed results, some good things, some kind of normal AI LLM generated things where you need to take some multiple iterations. But I'm curious, if you are watching this, have you used Codex? Have you found any good use cases for it yet? What do you think? Let me know, add a comment. Carlo, not yet. I'm in the same boat. I'm hoping to try it out this week. All right, some other things. So Quen has just released, I think it was yesterday, they shipped a demo of essentially a website generation tool, prompt to website. So Quen is, kind of out of Alibaba there, and it's really to compete with V0 and Lovable. So interesting to know. I haven't seen any reports of how good it is yet, but they had a pretty cool demo video that they shared on Twitter. And I expect that we'll hear some more information soon of whether that's any good or not, and whether it really does compete with V0 or Lovable. But my assumption is it's probably decent. A lot of the stuff that they ship usually does end up making waves. So we'll see if this does as well. I do want to talk a little bit about the Microsoft Build conference. It's going on right now, and there's been some really cool things that have been shared through that. Let me see if I can actually pull up. Maybe I'll pull up here a screenshot in a little bit. But the first thing that was, I think, the really cool thing that caught my attention was that GitHub Copilot unveiled a built-in coding agent. So essentially, it's an interface within GitHub where you can prompt an agent, or you can actually create an issue. I think it goes through GitHub issues. You can create a detailed issue, you can assign it to an agent, and then it will come back with a PR, all within GitHub. So you're in GitHub's web interface, you create an issue, or an issue comes in, you give it to the agent, it will then create a PR for that issue. And it kind of runs, it doesn't block your workflow. You just are kind of assigning issues to agents. That's a really, if that works, that's a real game changer for even Mastra. Mastra is an open source project. We have issues come in all the time. If we could have an agent kind of take a first pass at some of the even lower effort issues that we get on a daily basis, that could be a huge time saver and really help us ship things much, much faster. So I'm very interested to see how that rolls out, how we can get our hands on it, how we can try it. I don't know much information other than I think it was announced today. So will be interesting to see how that plays out. Microsoft has really been going all in on agents at the conference right now. They has new multi-agent orchestration in Microsoft 365 Copilot Studio. So it lets enterprises spin up cooperating agents tuned to their proprietary data. So that's obviously big for enterprise Microsoft clients. And another thing that really caught my attention was Windows MCP support. So it essentially turns the operating system into an agent host. So it exposes the file system and all through MCP, right? So that is very interesting. We've talked about MCP a lot on this stream. We've been going deep into MCP over here at Mastra. We have support for, you can connect to MCP through Mastra agents. You can also use your Mastra tools that you create and turn those into MCP servers. So the fact that Windows is actually going to support MCP is pretty wild. There's another, so VS Code, Copilot's open sourcing the code it uses to talk to LLMs. I'm not sure, Carlo, if this is what you're referring to here with this, but I imagine so. But yes, VS Code, Copilot's open sourcing the code that it uses to talk to LLMs. So that's the system prompts, the tool calls. They're really trying to, I guess, position themselves as like the open source AI IDE. And it's really going to be interesting, though, how does that position VS Code against Windsurf and Cursor, right? Windsurf and Cursor have been taking off the last year. VS Code was a little late in the game to adding MCP and some of these other features, but now it's looking like they want to kind of be the open source solution, which I guess will be interesting to see how that positions them against the other major players. And so last, another one that was kind of interesting, and I'll just share my screen and you can see this here. So that we have this type agent was just released. So it's a Microsoft research prototype for building personal AI assistants using structured prompting and retrieval augmented memory, or structured RAG. So it uses what is called like an AMP architecture, which is actions, memory, and plans to handle complex tasks with minimal LLM calls. So the system routes user input to specialized agents like calendar, email, and browser through a dispatcher, and includes a voice-supported Electron interface. So it's considered experimental, it's not production ready, and it's really designed to explore agent-based interaction with apps through natural language. So again, this was just released, I think just on stage actually, probably, I don't know, sometime today. But very interesting, more and more AI agents information coming out. All the big players, whether it's Microsoft, Google, GitHub, obviously, all going all in on AI agents. All right, well, that's it for the news for today. Quite a bit of things. Normally we try to keep this segment just a few minutes, but it's seeming like there's a lot going on. But we did want to now talk to someone else on the Mastra team. And before we do, Abhishek, how is Mastra support with Convex? It should work with Convex. We've talked a little bit with the Convex team. We're trying to improve support. So if there's anything that's not working, please let us know. But you should be able to use Convex with Mastra. All right, so we're going to bring on Marvin from our team here, and we're going to talk a little bit about what he's doing at Mastra, some of the stuff he's working on, and we call this Meet the Mastras. Marvin.
Hey everyone, super nice to be here. Hello, Shane.
So before I ask you what you're working on, give me just a little background. So where are you based out of, and what's some of the stuff that you've worked on in before Mastra?
Yeah, sure. So you can hear it. I'm not an English speaker. I'm French. I'm living in Strasbourg at the frontier of Germany. And so, yeah, I'm mostly doing front-end engineering. It's been like 12 or 13 years that I'm doing this. I had a chance to work with Shane at Gatsby. I've been working at Strappy, the CMS also. I've been working at ProtonMail, these kind of companies, and mostly working on the React ecosystem, so React Native, and everything around. So I'm mostly focused on the user experience and user interface part of the stack. Super happy to be at Mastra. That's such a good adventure.
Yeah, I mean, I think what, one of the things we at least I personally, and I know Abi, like we kind of come from similar backgrounds, right? We all come from this world that's like the web world, and I think that there's this interesting collision with web and AI that's happening. So I believe probably a lot of you listening have either been web developers, app developers, and you're now questioning, how do I add these AI features to the apps and the websites that I'm building? And so I think that it's an interesting time to be a web developer, whether it's a front end, a back end, full stack. And so interesting, I guess, so how has it been? Because I know you haven't spent a ton of time in AI before this. So how's it been like trying to absorb all this AI information while still, of course, doing your normal front-end engineering work?
Yeah, something that is funny about AI is that at first you think it's a very geeky space, like it's very obscure, very complex. And then you start to realize, man, it's just enhancing the user experience at the end, right? It's like, I'm just giving you a prompt. You can interact it with natural language and you get back some results. And thinking of it like this helps me a lot, at least just understanding the value for the end user. And then every technical bit is, it's learning like everything else. You have to dive in it, learn some stuff, iterate, and then it just works.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if, until it doesn't work. A lot of times it doesn't work. Sometimes sometimes it just works. Sometimes it doesn't work. But yeah, I guess, so I know that a lot of people on the Mastra team are using AI code tools. Do you have a favorite? Are you using, Cursor, Windsurf, VS Code? What's
Cursor?
You're a Cursor fan? Okay, yeah. So chalk one up for Cursor. Chat, if you're listening, are you Cursor, Windsurf? Are you excited to try out the thing I just announced with go back to VS Code? Now that they're open sourcing a bunch of it, what are you using? Chat, let us know. Weigh in on the discussion. I'm a 50-50 Cursor, Windsurf, depending on the day, myself.
Yeah, make sure to choose the good one.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, what are you working on here at Mastra? What's some of the stuff you've been working on since you joined, and is there anything that you're kind of proud of that you've worked on so far?
Yeah, in these kind of companies, you build stuff very fast. You build amazing stuff very fast, and you have to ship a lot of things. So you have to ship a product, you have to ship a lot of complex feature at the core level, and you also have to provide user interfaces for people. So my job at Mastra is about improving your experience in the playground and in the cloud platform. So I'm mostly working on everything user interfaces. So for example, in the playground, I've recently revamped the agent sidebar that you have on the right side that will be shipped tomorrow. So you will see it tomorrow. I've also been working on generating Mastra project for the cloud project from templates. So you can choose a template directly in the UI, and it will create a Mastra project that you can use directly without having to run the Mastra command locally and to push something to GitHub. So you can just, pick a template. We only have one for now, but you pick the template, you enter a few information, and you have a Mastra application running on cloud, which is pretty nice. And yeah, that's the kind of things that I'm working on these days.
So now I have to ask. You said the new playground sidebar is gonna ship tomorrow. Can we see it today?
Yeah, sure.
So
I can show you some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you pull it up. I'll fill some time to give you a few moments. But yeah, if we could, we always like to look at what's coming, both in Mastra, but also just in the AI agent space in general. So anytime we can have a chance to see what's going to happen, what's going to launch tomorrow, let's take a look. And we always, one of the things we like to do in this live stream is we like to see some code. So if you do have any code you can share, happy to see that too. Otherwise, I'll be sharing some code later. So every day we like to see at least a little code. Most of the people that watch this are at some level a developer, right? You're developing something, you're building something. So we like to share some code as well.
Yeah, sure. Can you give me a minute because I have to restart Chrome for the permission stuff?
Yeah, no worries. I will. I am good at filling time. It's part of my job. Just fill time.
I'm back in a minute.
Yeah, no worries. All right, for those of you that are just joining us, we are about 15 minutes into AI Agents Hour. I'm Shane. I'm your host today. Still missing my co-host, Abi. Where are you, Abi? Unfortunately, in Japan. But you will be joining us back to normal, hopefully starting in a couple days. I think he's got to travel back. He's going to spend some time in Europe, but he will be joining us again probably on maybe Wednesday or Thursday and be back to normally scheduled hosts. We talked a little bit about what's happening in AI, specifically some really cool stuff happening in the Microsoft Build conference. So go back and check the live stream. If you are tuning in, you might be watching us on X, you might be watching us on LinkedIn, you might be watching us on YouTube. You can just add a comment and we will we'll get you whatever you share. We'll try to answer on the stream. We'll try to share it on the screen even. So if you have comments on anything that we're talking about, anything that we shared earlier in the news, please let us know and we will try to share it with the world. All right, Marvin, I'm bringing you back in.
Yeah, sorry for that.
and so we are going to walk through some of the stuff that's going to get shipped into the Mastra Dev Playground. So if you've used the Dev Playground, Marvin's probably at least touched some of the code that you've interacted with. And we're going to see some things that are hopefully shipping tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, so if you start...
And Marvin, can you, I'm gonna do the same thing I ask every guest. Can you give us about 3 clicks of zoom here?
That's probably good.
Yeah, that's pretty good right there.
Let me just maybe one like this. So yeah, if you have started a Mastra project locally, you may be used to this interface already. And I've been working on some of the few stuff. This one particularly because we have the sidebar that is taking a bunch of space, right? So now you can just collapse it, and if you refresh the page, it will just remember your preference. So you can still interact with the thing, but it's a very condensed bar. I like this kind of UI because it leaves some space for what is important on the screen. And so what I was mentioning before is that we have a new sidebar for the agent. So if I click on it, I'm now having access to this kind of information. And one very requested feature is, how do I know my agent ID? And so the agent ID has been here. I don't know if you see it, but it has been in the URL for a long time. But now you can just copy it clicking this button. So if you click on it, it's copied, and you can then use it in your code. So that's pretty convenient. Now we have changed also a bit this thing. It looked a bit different before. It was a bit weird to use. You were having a button, add a comment or something like this to enhance your prompt. But now you can just enhance your prompt by typing something here, make it shorter, for example, and you can enhance it. So it's just a better UI, and it will tell you, hey, do you want to discard your changes or just use them? So it's very subtle changes that will probably help you enjoy a bit more the UI. We also have changed the interface for the tools, so you now have access to your tools like this. If you click on them, you still have access to to their playground. This one needs also a bit of love, but I will come back to this later.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of
we will get
changes.
there one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many things to do that, you know. Also, something else that has changed, the tools page. It's now very different. Yeah, I will just. You now have access to this page that will show you all the tools that have been registered in your master application. So before that, it was showing with some kind of nav bar on the left side that was listing all of your agents, and you were able to see your tools by agent. Right now, we have just decided to put every single of your tool here and to add the agents that use this tool just inside the card. And you can then just filter out stuff from there. If you want to get weather agent, you can just do this kind of thing. So again, it's minimal changes that should improve your experience. And I'm very curious about what you would like to have in the future, because this is the small thing that probably will be useful for you.
That's a good call out. If you are watching this, if you've used the Mastra Dev Playground, what are we missing? What are the little, whether it's a small UX issue or whether it's whole features, what are we missing from the Dev Playground? What should we work on next? Please let us know in the comments wherever you're watching this, and we will highlight some. So we have one, VS Code client extension. So can you provide some more information? What exactly do you mean with the VS Code client extension? So we do have a Mastra Docs MCP server. So I think client supports MCP. So if you're looking for just Mastra documentation and helping your agents write better code, hopefully that solves it. If not, if you have other specific requirements, Javier, let us know.
Yeah, that's very interesting to just know, because yeah, as I mentioned before, we are moving in a lot of different spaces and very fast. So it's important to just sometimes focus on the experience that we provide also. And the last bit that I just wanted to share with you is the runtime context. So now the runtime context has formatting. So if you put some stuff here, you have access to formatting. It also has syntax highlighting. So if I'm typing about JSON, small stuff again, but something that should help you use the playground a bit more easily. And I'm seeing that I'm having an issue here, so I'll probably have to fix it tomorrow. And you can also copy the context directly. So this is the kind of changes I'm working on these days, and I will hopefully work on the other tabs that I've not covered yet. So right now I'm working on the workflows, for example.
Yeah, and so can we go back to runtime context?
Yep.
That is new for some people. I think a lot of people aren't familiar with what runtime context is within the context of Mastra, which is kind of a mouthful to say. But I guess, do you want to take a crack at explaining runtime context? Do you want me to? It might be good just to highlight high level why runtime context is maybe important.
I think this should be self-explanatory. This is the reason why I've put it here.
Yeah, because I think it is. Yeah, I think people do. It is a loaded term, and so they're not necessarily understanding exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it does basically lets you pass in dynamic variables into your agents and tools, from your runtime. So, something, whether that could be a user ID or something that's passed in from your system. So you make sure that the agent only has access to specific tools that are assigned to that user or something like that. Or if you're getting, if you have a tool that gets data from the database, you can pass in the user ID. So that gets passed into the database call. So they only get their data. So a lot of things you can do with runtime context, but now you can actually test that in the playground. So you can pass in what the runtime context should be. So when you load the playground, it has that context passed into everything you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were having a good demo about currency, for example. One of the masters was deciding by default which currency should be shown by the agent, and it was working pretty well. Like, give me only information in euro, and it only gave back information in euro. So it's like a general context in this case that was very helpful.
All right, we got a comment or question from Jack. So Jack Park on X, is it possible for an agent to call a workflow as a tool? Yes. it's not only possible, it's often recommended as a really good way to expand your agents, right? With those things, workflows are great because they're slightly more deterministic than just letting the agent make all the decisions. But sometimes you need an agent to call a workflow, or you need to call you need a workflow to call into an agent as one of its steps. And yes, they're built to be composable, so you can kind of piece them together. And I think it shows up.
Should show up right here.
Yes, so it'll show up if you assign a workflow to an agent. It'll show up as basically it's in its own section, but it's essentially just a tool call. And I've used this analogy on this stream before, so if you've listened to it and heard me use it, I'm sorry. You're going to hear it again because I've said it 100 times. But I like to think of if you were thinking about reproducing or like replacing like the tier 1 support job for your customer support as like an example of how you might think about agents and workflows. Well, an agent would be the actual support person who's making the decisions and deciding what to do. You have tools that they have access to. Maybe that's Slack, or maybe that's Zendesk or GitHub Issues or whatever. And then you have workflows, which are specific playbooks that you want that support person to run depending on the situation. And so in that case, you could see how as a tier 1 support, you might be assigned a bunch of tools, some workflows, and then you as the smart individual decides when to call those different things based on requests that come in. So here's another interesting question. Why does every agent app look like a chat interface? This is a great question, actually. I think chat is the easiest interaction. I think it's like a common use case for people, right? You chat with others on your team. You chat with agents. I use Slack to chat with Marvin to ask him to come onto the stream earlier today. So, I think it's a pretty common interface. I don't think it's necessarily the best. I've heard, and I didn't come up with this by any means, but I've heard it from a few different people that, chat interfaces are like the CLI, for agents. So maybe it goes away. Maybe there's modified, improved interfaces over time, but I think chat is the most approachable. So I think that's why everything starts like a chat interface, and then eventually people build better interfaces. Just like why oftentimes when you're developing something, you end up starting at the CLI, even if your end users don't just see the CLI, they see the results of all the work you've done, writing some code. What else, Marvin? What else should we talk about today?
I mean, I just want to say that you're very good at explaining things. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very good because I don't understand things deeply enough, so I have to simplify themselves for myself. So
that's hopefully nice.
Hopefully that helps you watching. So I explain it like I'm 5 because I often feel like when learning these when jumping into AI, things are changing so fast that you feel like sometimes you're still in kindergarten. It's actually funny. Marvin, we actually have a channel in our Slack called Kindergarten, because the idea is we're all still learning this stuff and we're all still trying to keep up. And it feels like every day we're just in kindergarten trying to like catch up with everything that's going on.
It's moving so fast.
Yeah. I guess anything else you want to show on the playground?
I don't know if people have seen the new traces thing, like this one with I don't know if people are using this one. I'm curious to know if people are using traces extensively these days. Because personally, I don't, and I was curious to know if people were using this feature. It has changed a bit in a waterfall fashion now. I was just curious to know.
Yeah, if anyone using the traces interface in the dev playground, please let us know in the comments. I know that so here's my hot take is I don't use traces unless something goes wrong.
Yeah.
But things are always going wrong. So I use traces a lot anytime I'm building. And I imagine as you get, most of what I build these days is not the most, most complex examples. I'm building a lot of, I like to I say I have breadth. I go wide. I have a lot of things I'm working on, but I haven't gone as deep as a lot of people that are probably listening to this stream. So curious if you were all using traces, and if you're not even using Mastra, are you using some kind of tracing UI? There's a whole bunch of tools that offer these kind of traces when you're building agents. Curious what you're using, how you like it. and where you find the value, because we do, we integrate with a lot of those. Like we provide a pretty good tracing interface, but we know that there are some tools that go even deeper than what we do. So we try to integrate with those as well.
Yeah, that's a great call. Otherwise, what else do I have to show? I don't know if people are used to cloud already, or
I don't think we've ever really showed Mastra Cloud publicly, and I think it's time. I think today is the day we can show just a little bit about Mastra Cloud. So a lot of, first of all, if you want to get it pulled up, I will give a little preamble about what is Mastra Cloud. So people ask, why does Mastra Cloud exist? What's the benefit of it? And ultimately, you have this nice playground experience that Marvin just showed, and you're building your agents, you're writing code, you're kind of developing things, and ultimately you need to ship these agents into production at some point. And oftentimes you already have a provider that you want to use, and that's great, whether you're shipping to Vercel or Netlify or Cloudflare or wherever else, some DigitalOcean drop interface or out in the servlet out in the cloud, you can do that. But often you don't have you haven't picked where you want to deploy this, and we want to make it seamless for you to go from dev to production in as easy as possible and kind of keep this local playground experience in the cloud. And so that is where we do have Mastra Cloud. We've been building it. It is in private beta now. There's a request access button on our website. You can click, you can get access to it, and you can start building. But why don't we show a quick like 2-minute demo, and then we do have another special guest that's going to join us here very shortly.
I'm going to tease a little, so.
And while you pull it up, why don't we bring our next guest on? He can add some commentary as well. So today I'm going to bring on Ward. And last time we saw Ward, if you all were watching the stream, he was showing us his farm. Today, I don't think we get the farm view. We get just his normal desk view. So people are disappointed, Ward, that we're not looking at goats and horses today. But we're glad to have you.
I can go afterwards, but I thought it was easier to do it on a desk today because I might need to show something as well. So
awesome.
Oh,
well, yes. And so Marvin, you have pulled up Mastra Cloud. So talk me through what are we looking at here?
Okay, so Mastra Cloud in 2 minutes. So I'm going from the beginning. So what you are seeing on the screen is all the projects that I've created on Mastra Cloud, and all these projects are obviously Mastra projects, and those ones are on my personal GitHub repository. So everything that you see here, they point to a GitHub repository, and they run in this platform. So I will just click on this one. I have a lot of them.
And can you give me one click of zoom?
Yeah, is that better?
That's better.
Yeah, cool. So this is a Mastra project that is running on cloud right now. So I'm going to click on it. And what you are seeing here on this overview section is the latest build that has been done of my project. So this represents the application that runs in production. I can have access to my Mastra project API through this URL directly from the internet. And I can query my agent workflows directly from there. I have a bunch of builds that have been run here, a bunch of deployments. I have access to the logs of the project that is running in production. So if I interact with this project somehow by calling an agent or a workflow, I will have access to some logs here, and probably a lot of them. I have access to my agents. I have access to my workflows. The UI looks pretty much the same as the playground. I can interact with my agent almost the same way. I have a bit less for now, but we will improve on it too. So I can interact here. I have access to traces, evaluation, but all of this is hosted somewhere on the cloud. And so my agent is available from HTTP directly. And it's the same for workflows. And that's all I have for now.
So you're saying that I just hook up my Git repo and everything is there?
Yeah.
Like I have deployments every commit I make. It's just a new version. I can go back in time, all those things.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
but
that's super cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
super nice.
And yeah, I think the main benefits you get with Master Cloud, a lot of people ask, like, how does this differ from other things? Well, with Master Cloud, you get essentially like an agent runtime. So your agents and workflows in the cloud, accessible over an API, so you can connect it to any front end wherever your front end lives.
Yeah.
You also get the kind of the observability, tracing, evals, all kind of built in as well. And it's built, the ultimate goal, long-term goal of Master Cloud is, should be interchangeable. You can host your agents and just use Master Cloud for your observability. If you want to host your agents somewhere else, if you want to host your agents with us and use other observability providers, it should play nice that way as well. So you can kind of get the best of whatever world you need, best of both worlds. You can have us run everything, or if you have specific requirements for your project, we want to be flexible, so you can connect it to kind of anything wherever you are deploying your AI projects.
So I can host my Mastra project on Vercel or Netlify or Cloudflare, and I can still use observability in Master Cloud.
So today, not quite, but very soon. Yes. Right now, you kind of get both. That's why we still are in private beta for a reason. But yes, that is the long-term goal, is that you can, if you, especially this is really beneficial for people if you have like a bundled Next app, right? You want your agents within your Next project, but you also still want the observability pieces. So you might still deploy to, let's say, Vercel, but you want the observability parts, the tracing, the logging, all that. So I think it's, in theory, it's supported. I don't think we've actually officially announced it or released it. So there's still some things we're doing to make that actually work. So more to come on that soon.
I'm so excited about this project. Cannot wait to see it live.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Marvin. Thanks for walking us through the playground. Thanks for giving us a little preview of Cloud. Thanks for talking a little bit about your background, and definitely excited to have you come back on in the near future.
With pleasure. It was super nice. Thank you.
Yeah. See you, Marvin.
Bye-bye.
All right, Ward. Then there were two. So for those of you that have just joined us, this is AI Agents Hour. I'm Shane with Ward. Both of us are from Mastra. We talked a little bit about what's happening in AI. We met Marvin, who talked us through the Mastra Dev Playground and Mastra Cloud. Now I'm here with Ward, who's our open source lead at Mastra. Ward, what did you want to chat about today? I know one thing that I have on my list, as you can see, the next item up. I do want to get your opinions on that, but did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, we're also going to introduce streaming for workflows. So it's been a feature that many people have asked in the past, and we had like some kind of streaming. We had like a watch task, and you could like get step changes, all those things, but it wasn't really enough for like rich applications. Let's say you are creating a simple chatbot and you wanted to see every step, for example, your workflow calls an agent and that agent calls a tool. Like there's so much nesting, and we're just not displaying all that information. So we basically went back to the drawing board and recreated the whole streaming protocol. Like we're gonna ship it tomorrow, but then maybe probably in the future we're gonna look into more utilities to support like use chat from AI SDK and like have data stream protocol, so we can basically have better standards for like all the UI packages out there, so you don't have to do all the data mangling yourself. So you just do like two data stream and you get like a data stream that works. But for now, it's a stream that has all the information you need, and you can skip steps yourself. So if you don't need any like that certain step, if you're not interested in tool calling, you just do like an if case, if tool call, I don't do anything, those kind of things. And I can show it.
Yeah, let's see it, because this is going to be when we get to storybook time, which is coming later. You're going to see that I desperately needed workflow streaming to have a better interface. So people, hopefully they won't laugh at my my non-existent UI when it comes to the workflow that runs the example I'm going to show. But workflow streaming didn't exist. I could have kind of hacked it together. I chose not to because I wanted to get something out there. But now that workflow streaming does exist, I need to go back and actually update things.
I just need a second to get my branch ready because I did not pre-build it yet, and I was working on something else.
No worries. Do that, and I'm going to answer a couple questions that we got in the chat. So one quick question. Do we have support to use the Voyage embedding model and re-ranker? And Abhishek, so if you're talking about using the embedding model for like a RAG pipeline or some kind of RAG setup, yes, you should be able to do that. That should work. Same with re-ranking models. And when it comes to just models and providers in general, one of the choices we made with Mastra was to be built on top of AI SDK. So any provider that's supported by default out of AI SDK, you can use within Mastra as well. But we do, I believe we have specific support for Voyage embedding model and re-ranking, or the re-ranker model. And one more comment from Vinicius Brown. Stream for workflows will be very handy. Yes, agreed. And with that, did I stall enough, Ward, for you to be ready?
Yes.
I feel like that's half my job, is just stalling so we can make sure that we're ready and get it pulled up.
I'll see if I can share my screen, if I know how to do it in here.
Yeah, there should be just a share button.
I think it's this one.
Should
I make it lighter, bigger, smaller?
Yeah, always one more click of zoom than you expect you need. That's pretty good.
Can also
and you could make it a little wider if you wanted to, but it's up to you. There you go.
How to start? So basically, I have I did a create Mastra bootstrap project, so everyone knows the weather agent. Like we have the weather agent and we have a weather workflow. Same, basically this project, I moved it to the vNext, which becomes the stable workflow engine tomorrow as well. So basically vNext becomes the default workflow engine because we rewrote it all to be like handle branching, parallel execution, all those kind of things in a better way. So this is going to be shipping tomorrow as well. So I'm just adding onto these workflows. So basically what do we have? We have our weather agent. It's basically a travel expert that's going to tell me what to do, what activities I should do in the morning, afternoon, and so forth, based on the weather forecast of today, I guess, or whatever I ask it. So this is just all the same. We create a step, don't have to go through all of the steps, I'm guessing, unless I should do it, Shane.
I mean, I don't think we need to cover everything. We can always, if there's questions on any of this, if you're watching in the chat, if you can add a comment wherever you're watching us, and we can go into some more depth if you have any questions on any of these steps.
Yeah, like this step just going to get the weather forecast for a given city, like it calls an API and just returns me some data. And then I have like a small mapper step, and we're going to improve that API a little bit because I have like a create step where I just pass the agent. So I had this weather agent for the activities. I don't have to create any step, like a wrapper step anymore. I can just do create step, pass the agent, and it works. But it's not yet good enough because I had to make like a dummy step that's going to generate me a prompt. It would be nice if I could have like a function here. Like for example, do something like this, and then like prompt could be then a function or something that we can basically copy all of this into here, and then it will do it for us. But we don't have that yet, so I just create like a dummy step that's just going to generate me a prompt where the location is set. I can do the create step agent, and I basically create my workflow like this. So workflow, pass in all the steps, and then do like all the workflows here. Seems to be like there is a TypeScript error that I'm not going to fix right now, because it could be that it's just something with my PMP workspace, because I linked all the packages to the mono repo. So it's not an npm install. It's like linking to my open source repo. And then sometimes TypeScript issues happen along the way. So I'm not going to look at that as of now. And then I have a server file. So this is just a TS file that I'm going to run with TSX. And I just get the workflow. I'm going to create a run, and then I'm going to stream it with the input data of New York. And I'm going to, and then we can just execute the stream with like a 408. But you can also do any stream work. So stream dot get the reader, and then you get like the reader as well. Basically, it's a default stream. So it's a web stream, not a node stream. There is some small difference there. But why did we use a web stream? Basically, because then it's compatible with like Cloudflare, and it's becoming like the main standard for like Dino as well. And then it's like just really portable. And then I could do like reader dot. I have to do this first, like tone value, like so, and then do a while loop. That's also a syntax that's possible. For example, I have to make this a lot, of course. So this is a syntax you can use, or this one. I prefer mostly this one because it's easier to read, but sometimes you have like conditions and everything. Then the while loop makes more sense sometimes as well. But and then in the client, I have exactly the same. Syntax is a little bit off, so we're going to change that to be more streamlined as well, because now I have to do the stream on the workflow, and when on the server I had to do the stream on the run, and on the run it makes more sense. But the client uses like client.js, so we have to model that as well. But I don't think we can get it in tomorrow, but definitely next week. So that's like a UX or DX optimization we can do as well. And then, like you see, we get a stream. It's the same 408 because it's a web stream. I can do exactly the same thing. So let's see, const reader. I think it's just a stream. Okay, maybe I'm wrong here, but it should. Okay, my types are wrong, so I have to fix that for tomorrow. But we should be able to do the same thing as here and get like a stream or this way. So that's something for me to fix. And then if I
one
run
question,
it,
this might be answered in this run. Do you have an example?
So,
do you have an example of what is the output of each chunk?
Yes. So I did this beforehand. So if I would run it, and I can run it again. So I think I have to do I still have TSX? I think it's source, and then server, for example, and then I'll pipe it to outlook.log. It's npm dlx, of course, because I don't have it installed. And you can see that it's like doing so much now because it streams the agent output as well, and the agent is streaming as well, and it's like a lot of words. So if we go to the output now, I stopped it because it takes so long, but basically you get the start of the workflow with the run ID, then you get like a step start, which is then the name of the step. You get the step result, which, because this was just the and because of my console log, I can do like a JSON stringify instead, which then logs the whole output, because console log trims it if I don't. So basically now I get output, and I'll run it in a second too to show you what object is about. But you get the whole result, you get step finish of that ID, you get step start from prompt 1, which was that mapper step that I made. As you can see, it has the output where the prompt is visible, so I can debug basically what did I send to the agent. step finish happened, new step, which is the weather agent. A tool call happened in the weather agent based on with the prompt that it's because a tool call, an agent is in the workflow a tool call. So basically, it's just prompting the agent with the prompt we saw above. And then for every step we get, so we get the arcs and we get then the delta. So I got a calendar icon, next stream. So there's a lot of like duplication, like this one. Then we have Monday. Then we have a comma. Like there's a lot of things going over the wire. We might need to improve that as well, but that's how AI SDK does it too. So if you would just run an agent stream with like the full stream option, also in Mastra, if you use like agent full stream, it does exactly this as well. So we just copied what AI SDK was doing to make it as compatible as possible with like use chat and whatever features they're gonna pull out. So yeah, every delta happens here. And if I go back to my older one, and if I should be able to collapse, I think I can collapse. Isn't there a way to collapse all? I don't think it's here. Maybe it's in view or something. Because I can scroll down as well. Maybe that's a better solution. So then at the end of the agent, I get like the step result. And then the output is the whole list again, because you might not care about the streaming at all. So you might still want to do the output of that step. Want to see that separately or something. And then we have step finish. And then we have finish with the run ID, which seems not to be correct either. So that's another bug I have to fix, that it's the same run ID as we have. Oh, okay. This was a different run where I set run ID to 1. So it is correct. But in the example I just ran, it was like an ID. But technically you can do whatever you want here. And let's say the agent calls another tool, you would get another other tool called streaming start. But I don't think we have one in this example. If I open up the agent, there is no tools, I think, no. Because the workflow did the tool call with the fetch shredder ahead of time, basically.
Okay, Ward, we have another question. And this one might not even be for you to answer, but we should, if Marvin was still here, maybe he would have some thoughts on this. That's really cool. Will Mastra Playground implement this in the workflow sidebar? Meaning, will Mastra Playground use this streaming to display progress as you're running? I'm assuming as you're running it in.
So yeah, we should add it. And I think Marvin also pinged me privately, and you as well, Shane, is like, we should. And he's definitely right. Like this will become a part of the playground, similar where we do like the chat interface with the agent. It's a like tool calling happened with this information. Like with this protocol now, we can show it in the playground as well, with like agents calls or tool calls, because I didn't show it in this example, but technically if you have like a tool, I don't know if I guess I have a tool, I could pass it as a step as well. So create step can have an agent, but it can also have a tool. So if I do like tool step, then I have to get, I think, the tool from, I don't know yet, but I think it's in tools index. So I can pass in a tool as well. And this is again,
I think it has the same name as the function below.
Okay, maybe that's okay. As or something, doesn't really matter. Yes, perfect. So now I passed in like a tool just to a step, which is similar to agent. So we're basically all the building blocks that we're building in Mastra will be basically part of steps as well. Like I mentioned, we might need some extra arguments here to make to give some configuration to these tools because we don't really want these dummy steps which have no real value except that they clutter your workflow view. But that's why we're building Mastra, right? Like one step at a time. We build something, we validate, we improve, and so forth.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been really cool to see what's coming. I know workflow streaming has been a huge issue. Honestly, a long time ago, long time being months, not years in this case, not that long ago, we built a pretty cool travel agent example, and it had this, travel workflow that would go look for flights, look for hotels, look for Airbnbs, but we were just kind of mocking the front end to like say the steps, and it was just all based on like timing of how long it normally took, because it just wasn't easy to stream what was happening in a Mastra workflow to the front end. Now this would be significantly easier to do the same thing. So I think a lot of people will, if they're building more complex agentic workflows with Mastra, are going to be able to take advantage of this.
Yep. And we also saw, like in the new AI SDK v5, they're allowing themselves to add like custom data types to like use chat and all those UI utilities. So we will be able to add that to like workflows agents as well. So if you have like custom messages you want to get over the wire, we will be able to enable that as well with like these streaming functionalities. So we will be future proof as well.
Awesome. Well, Ward, do you have a few more minutes to chat about the release tomorrow and some of the breaking changes? Yes. You are more in the know than I am on exactly what's going down, but I have a list and feel free to maybe talk through or jump in if you have any color to add to these my comments, I guess. So we do have a kind of a new release coming tomorrow, and we've been talking about it for a while, but there are some breaking changes. We try to avoid breaking changes, right? Because it makes upgrading harder, but we still are kind of we're still in what we consider beta. So we're still pre-GA. So these things can happen, but we do try to communicate often. So if you haven't heard, hopefully now we are having a breaking release tomorrow, meaning when you do go about upgrading, there might be some things depending on what you use that you might have to make some actual changes to your code. So it might not be as smooth as a normal upgrade. One of those is some vector store changes. I think before there was like positional arguments, and now it has named arguments. So I don't know. Any comments on that? Otherwise, I'll keep going.
No, I think it's just the improvement of UX, because we have like a create index on the vector DB where now like it's positional, but basically it was like arg1, arg2, arg3, arg4. But the more we add, the harder it is to memorize where do I put what. So that's why we basically moved it to two options, where basically it's now one argument, which like key values, which mostly what I've did in my career is like if it's get bigger than 3, that's when we move to like the options.
Yeah. And maybe I'll just share our internal notes around, and we're gonna have a blog post that comes out and talks about all this. It should come out tomorrow. Just again, so it goes alongside the release. But we'll just go through this so you can kind of see examples of some of the things that are changing. All right, so method renaming. So methods update index by ID and delete index by ID have been renamed to update vector and delete vector to better reflect their purpose. So there's kind of the before and after of that. And I think, again, just trying to make things more clear. We do care a lot about just general API naming. And so that does mean, if especially when things are still kind of new, if we can make it more clear for future users, we can, if absolutely necessary, do a breaking change. In this case, we decided it was worth it. So PG vector specific changes, so changes to the constructor. Again, it looks like it's more of like a named argument rather than just a positional argument. We removed the define index method. So now you can just use build index for that. Some PG storage changes. The schema parameter has been replaced with schema name for better clarity. So you can see that is, been updated. And that's all the storage related ones. So for memory, the default embedder has been moved to a separate package. So go ahead.
Yeah, basically we saw, and I saw someone in the chat as well talk about convex. Like we have a lot of people that integrate Mastra in other projects. Like, is it Next? Is it like a convex backend or whatever? We saw that they won't use the defaults, but they get the defaults even if they don't want to. And fast embed is one of them because it was integrated in Mastra core and then Mastra memory as well. Basically, whenever you install Mastra memory or core, you get like fast embed even if you weren't using it. And we basically said like, okay, these defaults were great when I didn't know what I was doing. And we see that our users are knowing what they're doing. And basically we said like, okay, we're just gonna separate these defaults out to different packages. So now you have to mention them like yourself basically, and there's no magic anymore because people were like, hey, I'm getting this fast embed problem. I have no fast embed in my code. Like, what is this thing talking about? And basically we're making those defaults, like removing those defaults, and they're still there, but you have to do a little bit more work to get them through the finish line.
All right.
And that's basically what all these memory changes are. It's just changing defaults, but they are breaking because you now have to enable semantic recall where before we were enabling it by default.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just a matter of, streamlining making it easier for deployments, streamlining the install experience, which again, you have to be a little bit more explicit. So the out of the box isn't quite as simple, but our goal is to make a little bit less assumptions for you. We don't want to, previously we wanted to just like, we were making a bunch of assumptions. There's a little bit of magic going on. We want to reduce the amount of magic. So you're not, getting to deployment time and realizing, oh, there's this hidden memory or embedding model used behind the scenes, and now I have to solve for that, or I need to figure out how to deploy that. So I think that is one of the things we've been trying to move more towards. All right, so we have working memory now uses tool calls instead of adding content to the text response. Implicit memory settings, default settings have been changed to be more reasonable defaults. So the previous were surprising. So previously it was set to 40, now it's lowered. Semantic recall was enabled by default, now has to be turned on. Generate title was enabled, but that triggers an additional LLM call on the first user message. So we want to, added extra latency, which we don't want. So now it's disabled by default.
Yeah. And the biggest reason for the generate title was just to show it in the playground with a nice title. So there was no real utility for the basic use cases. So it was a bit wasted latency, unless you really want to do something with the title.
Wasted latency, wasted tokens. Yeah. All right, so now some core stuff. There's no more default storage. We kind of talked about that, right?
Yep. So technically the same thing has happened with fast embed. SQLite was always there, and we had quite some issues with like Cloudflare because they have like their D1 store, but also SQLite itself doesn't work. Like SQLite Web works, but just gave us some issues, and then we basically removed it from Mastra core, but you can still get the same benefits by importing Mastra/libsql, like add it as a memory storage or file storage. And if you use like create Mastra, we will add it by default still, but it's visual that it's actually there. So that should help with like supporting other deployment targets.
So
Pinot is another one that we're going to remove from core. So now if you do create logger in core, you got like Pinot, which is like the best logger out there because it works with like worker worker threads and all those things. So even if you start logging like a million logs at the same time, your application would not feel anything, because a lot of loggers, they basically are synchronous. Even if they write something to like a file, they basically block the main thread. So you only have one thread in JavaScript. And basically all the loggers, they, even if it's like 1 nanosecond, but they could become really, really large. And Pinot Logger doesn't have that issue. That's why we chose it. But we also found that like Pinot is not compatible with Cloudflare. So, and probably some other environments as well. So we decided that Pinot shouldn't live in Mastra core anymore. It's just like a default console logger. So you don't get fancy formatting. You just get a logger. And then we basically have like a different package, but I have to update the example because it's going to just be Mastra logger and then tweet it on the fly.
we're watching live editing of our release notes right here. Never breaking changes notes.
So this is the logger now. So if you want the same Pinot pieces, and you'll get this on Mastra Cloud for free, even if you don't put a logger, we will swap it to Pinot for you because it has like more richer logs as well.
So
And if you don't pass
so
it,
this
you
is
get the console
in
logger.
will we default this in Master Cloud? Oh, okay. So they don't
Yes,
specify.
yes.
You'll have it in
And
cloud.
if you have,
got it.
yeah. And if you have your own logger setup, we would still use Pinot in the background for like all our log capturing, and then the other logger will basically only be a transformer, more or less. It's a bit complicated, but you won't notice any differences. But we will still use Pinot in the background just to make sure that your agent doesn't have any extra latency because of logging.
Okay, so Master cores move to peer dependencies.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a breaking change, but I've just put it there because it might be. Like normally all the Mastra projects have to install Mastra core themselves first, and then have like Mastra rag, Mastra memory. And the reason why we moved peer-to-peer dependencies, because before all the packages we published had like Mastra core as a dependencies, but sometimes you update a dependency, but your Mastra core would be duplicated. So for example, Mastra rag would have Mastra core 0.8.0, and then you would update maybe Mastra memory, and that would have like a Mastra core 0.9, but then your types would clash in TypeScript, and you would be like, I have no idea how to fix this. And then we basically had to tell people, remove your log file, remove your node modules, do a fresh install, and tada, it's there. So it's just friction for nothing. And now with peer dependencies, the thing we basically tell the packages, like use the Mastra core of your parent dependency, which is in our case always the user project itself. So we will always use Mastra core from the project, which means there's only one Mastra core ever installed, and that should help with like these small what is called paper cuts, basically, that are you like those paper cuts shouldn't happen. So that's why you're basically moving it to like peer dependencies. But again, it shouldn't be a breaking change, but you never know. So that's why we put it there.
All right, and then Master core default import will only include Mastra.
Yeah, so we still had some legacy Mastra core imports where you could basically import like everything from Mastra core, so Mastra storage. I think like all the like basically anything that you can get, like loggers and everything, was able to just from Mastra/core, we had like a bunch of warnings for, I think, 4 months already, that you shouldn't import it from Mastra core itself, but you always have to go like one step deeper. So for storage, you should do Mastra/core/storage. For loggers, it would be Mastra core/logger. And the main reason why we don't want this big, like everything from Mastra core, is basically tree shaking. So if you would embed Mastra in Next.js, or don't use our Mastra build or Mastra dev environments, or like CLI commands, you would get everything. Like even if you only import Mastra storage, it doesn't matter. Node is not smart enough to say, oh, we're only using Mastra storage and Mastra. No, it will try to like get all the imports that Mastra core has, try to evaluate them, and try to execute or parse them. And that's just adding so much extra work for the program, basically. And then with like these Mastra core storage, you basically only import what's necessary. And we are now basically removing all the warning codes and removing those file paths. But again, if you like have no warnings in Mastra today, you would not even have any breaking changes.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would help with if you were deploying an Next.js site, build times and, serverless
Yes.
function times. Yeah.
Compatibility issues. Yeah.
So
because it's similar to like if you're not using Mastra storage, for example, technically almost everyone is using. Let's say you're not using memory, you would get fast embed with this import nonetheless, even if you didn't even use it. So there was no way around that.
And that could really balloon like function sizes for serverless functions and all that.
Yes.
So yeah, this is going to be a big improvement. That's why we call Ward the bundle Ruski. All right. Last but not least, removing the deploy command.
Yeah. A small one. Like basically we already kind of deprecated the deploy command in like 4 releases ago or something. And there's a typo here. It's Mastra deploy. Like before we had like Mastra build, Mastra deploy, and deploy would execute, like if you have the Vercel deployer or Netlify deployer, it would execute like Netlify deploy or Vercel deploy. And like it embedded like the whole CLI and maybe sometimes an older version of the CLI, which for no real reason, because users can just execute Vercel CLI themselves, or even if they have like it all set up through the web UI, you do a commit, your build command is like Mastra build, and that should be enough to deploy to Vercel. So there was no real reason to use the CLI even. So basically that's why we're deprecating or like removing the deploy command, because there's no real use to let Mastra orchestrate it for you, where you probably know better how to deploy something to your cloud vendor of choice.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, those are the breaking changes. And for those of you that have just joined us or have joined us since we started, welcome to AI Agents Hour, although it's going to be closer to an hour and a half or 2 hours today. We'll see. We'll see how long we go. We do this every day, Monday through Friday, usually around noon Pacific time is when we start, but it does vary a little bit. Today we talked about some AI news. We talked about, forgot to silence my phone. So that's the first. We talked about some AI news. We talked with Marvin from the Mastra team. We talked with Ward from the Mastra team. We learned a little bit about the dev playground. We saw the cloud interface for Mastra Cloud. We talked a little bit about workflow streaming, and we have now talked through some of the breaking changes coming tomorrow. So if you are watching, if you do have questions or comments along the way, wherever you're watching this, whether it's X, LinkedIn, YouTube, just drop a comment. We see those. We will try to answer most of them as they come in. And Ward, I don't know what you have going on, but if you need to drop, you can say your goodbyes. Otherwise, I'm going to transition over to a storybook time.
I will hop off because I still have my farm to take care of. So I will feed my animals and
And
see
then
you another time.
And then next time we hope to have you call in from the farm, because we do like to see the goats and the horses and like to check in. We do care. We want to make sure they're okay, and we need visual proof that you're doing a
Well,
good job.
Abby is joining me. I think it was Wednesday, but now I'm guessing maybe even tomorrow, and we can do like a small live stream to
Yes.
like whenever he's here.
Yeah, everyone wants to see Abby working on the farm, helping you. I think all of us would appreciate that. So for those of
Some
you that
honest
are,
work for Abby.
yeah, exactly. Put Abby to work. For those of you that, haven't watched this before, normally Abby is my co-host. He is in Japan right now. He thought that was more fun than hanging out with us. That's fine. But he's going to be visiting Ward in Belgium here soon. So they will maybe be calling in together, and we will we'll see the farm and also chat with them about AI. Why not? All right, Ward. It was great talking to you.
Yeah. Have a good one.
All right. So we've been going for a little over an hour now. And last but not least, this is going to be my favorite segment of the day, because I get to talk about something that I have built and talk through it with you, and hopefully share some of the learnings that I learned along the way building it. And we're calling it Storybook Time because I built a pretty simple, you'll see it. It's not overly complex, but hopefully that also means we can all learn from it. But a pretty simple storybook generator with Mastra, using Mastra workflows, using OpenAI's image gen capabilities. And I'll show a demo. We'll look at some of the code, and we'll talk through, some of my thinking when I was building it. And it is far from perfect. I will just highlight that. It is not, it's available to the world to test out and try until the token count gets too high, and then I might turn it off. But at least for now, it's available to the world. So maybe we'll start with a demo, and then I'll share some of the code, and we will talk through how it all works. And along the way, if you have questions, please ask in the comments, and I will try to answer some of them as I go. So let's first get started. Let me share my screen here. And I will show a quick example of how this works. All right. So hopefully you all can see my screen. So this is a very simple website that I built, and I've wanted to build this honestly. So the domain is fableframes.com. I've wanted to build this for a very long time. We'll keep it up for a while. Eventually it's all open source, so I'll share the code as well. I've wanted to build this for a long time, but the image generation models just weren't good enough for quite a while, and they've been getting better and better. So if I think it's probably been about 2.5 years now, I guess, since Stable Diffusion first kind of got on my radar. I'm trying to remember. Like, time is hard, but I always kind of thought of this use case of building some kind of storybook generator. Candidly, I have a daughter. She's 3.5. Almost every night she wants me to make up some kind of story and tell her a story. And so I thought, well, it'd also be cool if I could just have AI help me create a story. Maybe not, screen time right before bed, but most likely just for, sitting around the house on, on the weekends or in the evenings, where we can create a story together and I can talk her through it. And so there's a whole bunch of examples that me and others that have tested this out have built. Let's see, maybe we can talk through. This is a fun one. So Pip's helpful day on the farm. This was generated. You can see there's some text, there's an image. You can see that in this case, we're doing story time. So Pip is trying to be helpful. He's not able to help Mrs. Cluck. He's not able to help Mr. Moo. Is not able to help Mrs. Woolley. tries to help the duck, but the duck doesn't need help. The duck mentions that maybe farmer needs help, and then is able to actually help the farmer out. And you can see is able to help the farmer, feels really good about helping, and you can see all in all, pretty simple story, but I'll show you how this was generated, but it was all generated just through a couple simple prompts. And I think the thing that finally was the big unlock for me when I wanted to build this, and the reason I couldn't build it a long time ago, was just the consistent character creations. You can see that the character is basically the same, not 100% if you really look, but for the most part, very similar through every frame. And the secondary characters do change. Like there's more I could do to make this a lot better, but you can already see it's significantly better than what you've probably seen before. So, or maybe you've seen some better things before, but overall it's better than what it was, a year ago or 2 years ago when I first started kind of thinking through this idea. So let's walk through an example. So you'll create your magical story. We can kind of pick what we want here. Let's go with more like let's kind of go with like a fantasy style. Actually, I like this style. This kind of like bold, naive style. So we need to describe our main character. Let's say a friendly blue dragon with purple wings. But we could describe any character, right? And fingers crossed this actually works. Most of the time it does. But here's one thing you'll notice. And I will show the code to how this is working. I don't give any visual feedback here, right? So this is working. It's not telling me it's working. I didn't have workflow streaming at the time, Ward, if you're listening, but I will be able to update this now and have much better user interactions. I could, of course, just kind of faked it. That's what I've done in a lot of cases. We could, in Mastra workflows, you can actually, even before workflow streaming, you could kind of get specific events. So you could also kind of like provide some levels of feedback. Workflow streaming makes this a lot easier. So we will, I will update this eventually to use that. And so the UI will be much better. You'll be able to kind of see what it's doing. But I'll talk you through the steps. It's essentially going out to OpenAI's image gen and it's creating me 3 characters. And the reason 3 is I want to give the user a couple options. It takes this prompt, it generates a character in the style that you selected, and it gives you 3 options for us to then pick. And that character is then going to be the consistent character that shows up throughout the rest of the story. And so we'll let this thing go for just a second. I'll actually share the GitHub repos with you as well. So let me get those pulled up as it's going. Oh, okay, so here we go. It finally worked. And so we can see we have 3 different options. Chat, if you have, if you want me to pick one, 1, 2, or 3, what do you think? 1, 2, or 3, which dragon do we want as our main character? I'll give like 10 seconds for the chat to comment in here. So if you have a preference of which character we want to create this story, we are in storybook time. This is audience participation is optional. And while I wait for the chat to do some voting on which character we want to be the lead character in our story, I'm also going to share this. Let's see, I'll just go ahead and share here. So you can see my whole tabs. So this is recently, I just made it public. You can see Mastra-AI Fable-Frames. This is the front end. And I originally built this front end. I started with Lovable and then I kind of ejected and kind of built it from there. But it did start with just, Lovable to create the overall flow. And then I kind of just took it from Lovable and then built on top of it. And then also the Fable Frames -Mastra is where all the agents and workflows are living. So you can see in Mastra, we have some agents. We have a character writer, image writer, story writer, And then we have some workflows, generate character and a story workflow. And we'll look through that code here in just a little bit. All right. I am going to select this second example, or third example, sorry, number 3. And now we got to give our character a name. So looks like you can't see my screen for some reason. All right, so I don't know. Give me 1 second here to figure out. I don't know if the screen sharing was dropping for you, but it looked like it was dropping. So let me see if I can fix this technical issue here. All right, here we go. So we're going to go ahead and select this third one. We're going to say this character's name is, I don't know, Susie the dragon. Why not? And then we need to now create our story. So Susie the dragon is flying through the forest. Okay, so I'm just making this up, but I'm going to say Susie's flying through the forest and meets many forest friends that want to play games. She learns a valuable lesson around sharing and taking turns. Seems simple enough. Let's create the story. And this is going to take a while. So while this is running, we're going to start talking through some of the code, and then we'll come back. Again, there's no workflow streaming yet, so I don't show what's happening, but we'll look at the code briefly and we'll talk through what's actually happening. And while we wait, one comment. So are we keeping our jobs as writing code, or is it shifting more into building agents? That's a good question. I have my opinions. I think everyone else probably has their own. I don't think writing code's going anywhere. I think you might be building agents, but you also might be writing code as well. You might be using agents to help you write code faster. So I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. I don't think our jobs are necessarily going away, but maybe how we do our jobs could change. All right, so let me go ahead and I'm just going to pull up the Mastra code here. And I will get cursor pulled up today. Could have used windsurf, but today I will use cursor because why not? And I will share my screen and we will take a look at our Mastra workflows and our Mastra agents. All right, so we have some code here. Maybe do one more zoom. All right, so we have some, this is our kind of Mastra class. It's source Mastra index.ts. We just have a logger. We have 3 agents. We have a story generator, a character writer, an image writer. We have 2 workflows, generate characters workflow and story workflow. And let's take a look at, maybe we'll start with the workflows because this is very much a workflow driven application. So in our index file, we have our generate characters workflow and our story workflow. So if you remembered, we first generated those 3 characters. That's the generate characters workflow. And then now we're generating the story, which is the workflow that's currently running as I kind of flipped into the background. And I'm going to check. Looks like it's done. So we'll go back, we'll read it together, and then we'll look at the code. And again, looks like it is not working when I switch those tabs for some reason. Here we go. All right. And again, I don't know how good this is going to be. It's very much, it's generated, right? It's random. I have no idea what this is going to say, what this is going to do. So let's take a look though, and we will see see what happens. So it looks like it's 10 pages. Susie the Dragon's Forest Adventure. I can share this, why not? Well, I'll read it first before I share this, share it out. But Susie, so this is story time. So unfortunately for you, I'm going to read it because why not? Susie the Dragon was a bright, cheerful creature with shimmering scales that glistened in the sunlight. She loved flying through the forest, her wings creating a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves. One sunny morning, Susie decided to explore a new part of the forest she had never visited before. As Susie soared through the sky, she spotted a group of animals playing near a sparkling stream. Curious, she landed gracefully beside them. "Hello," she called out, her voice as warm as the sun. The animals, a rabbit, a squirrel, and a fox, looked up and waved excitedly. And I'm also just realizing if you just joined this, this stream and you hear me reading this storybook, there's not a lot of context here, but stick with us and we'll explain what's happening. "Hi, Susie," said the rabbit, hopping over. "We're playing a game of tag. Do you want to join us?" Susie's eyes lit up with excitement. "I'd love to," she replied, her tail swishing with joy. She had never played tag with forest animals before. The game began, and Susie quickly realized how fast her new friends were. The squirrel darted up trees, the rabbit zigzagged through the grass, and the fox was clever and quick. Susie flapped her wings to keep up, laughing as she chased them around. After a while, Susie noticed that the others were taking turns being it, but she hadn't had a chance yet. "Can I have a turn to be it?" she asked a little shyly. The animals paused and nodded, realizing they had been so caught up in the fun they forgot to share. Susie became it and chased her friends with glee, her wings giving her an advantage in the game. She felt happy to be included and even happier to see everyone having fun together. "This is so much fun," she exclaimed, her laughter echoing throughout the trees. As the sun began to set, the friends gathered by the stream to rest. "Thank you for playing with us, Susie," said the fox, smiling. "We should always remember to share and take turns. It makes the game more fun for everyone." Susie nodded, understanding the importance of their words. "I had a wonderful time," Susie said, her heart full of joy. "I'm glad we all got to play together and that everyone had a turn." The rabbit, squirrel, and fox all agreed, their faces beaming with happiness. And you can see there's a little issue with character creation here, especially secondary characters. But overall, it's been pretty good so far. With a final wave, Susie spread her wings and took to the sky, feeling with the cool evening breeze against her scales. She looked down at her new friends, grateful for the lesson she had learned about sharing and taking turns. As Susie flew home, she thought about all the fun she and the new friends she had and the new friends she made. She knew she would return to the forest soon, ready to play and share more adventures with her forest friends. So there you go. So not too bad. See if I can copy this link. I just say copy it here. And I'll post this on our YouTube for any of those that want to see it. So if you want to see this this link, go to our YouTube channel, find it in the comments. It'll be posted there. Well, let's talk through it. Let's talk through the example. So the only major problem I saw with this, I don't know for you watching, but consistent character creation kind of failed on this, on the 9th page. But other than that, the main character you can see is pretty good. The secondary characters, because they're pretty general, were pretty good. And I have some ideas on how I'd solve secondary character creation, but I just haven't had the time, and I don't know if I will solve it, but it's open source. Maybe you can solve it. So we can make this thing better. But let's talk through actually how I built this and how it all works. So let's take a look at the code. All right. So as I mentioned before, we have these two workflows, and the two workflows kind of drive everything that's happening in this application. So the first is this generate characters workflow. So for those of you that were here at the beginning, you saw we created a prompt. We got 3 options for images. We chose one. That was our main character. And then that character was then represented through all the pages in the story. So if we look at the generate characters workflow, and it looks like there's a type error, probably need to update, but we'll just ignore it because it is working. So the first thing that we do, I like to start when I look at workflows, I like to start at the bottom. So the generate characters workflow has just 2 steps. It's enhance character step and then generate character step. So it's really, just 2 steps, very simple workflow. let's walk through what each step does. So the first is this enhance character step. So the goal of this enhance character step is to take the first user's prompt, because a user isn't necessarily the best at generating a prompt for a character. So we kind of go through this enhance step. And this is pretty common in a lot of AI tools that are built, where you take the user's prompt and you don't just take what they say, but you run it through some kind of lightweight enhancement step, which gives the following, agents or LLM calls a better prompt to work with. Because again, users, especially they're not prompt engineers, they don't know how to write a good prompt. So you can kind of improve their prompt to be more consistent based on what you think you need later on in the workflow. So in this, I say transform this basic character description into 3 detailed character options. Limit each description to 2 sentences. So I take their basic character description, which gets passed in when the workflow is called. That's what the user enters. And then I want to basically expose it or extract 3 character descriptions, because that's what's going to drive the image generation. So then I specify the output. So I want the output to be, an array with 3 strings. So an array of 3 that, is 3 different strings for those descriptions. And then this gets passed into the next step. So I get the previous step result. I also get the style. So I pass in the style. So if you watched when I generated the character, I first selected a style. That style has a very specific prompt. So I pull out the results of the previous step. I pull out the style that they selected. I'm using Supabase here to store the images, Supabase storage. And now I'm basically just doing a map, or just looping through the 3 different strings and saying, create a children's book illustration of this character with whatever, all 3 of those looping through. The illustration should be vibrant, expressive, suitable for a children's story, show the full character with a simple background that highlights their key features. And then I pass in the style. So the style could be more like a watercolor, or, like the bold, naive style, or like an anime style, but whatever style they select gets passed in. And then I'm calling this generate image, which is just calling this GPT image 1. I'm calling it, again, I'm doing a map. So I'm calling this independently 3 times. When I first started, I just tried doing a generate image with, I only had the enhanced step generate 1 character. And then I called an N of 3, which is much faster. But the problem is almost every image was so similar, because it does get a pretty complex character description. And I wanted the images to be somewhat different. I didn't want each image to look 95% the same with just subtle differences. I wanted them to look quite a bit different. So you had options to choose from. So we're just looping through, we're calling it 3 times. Then after we generate the image, we are basically getting a buffer. We're uploading that file to Supabase. And so we're just returning where that image is stored. And then we just do a promise.all. So we run that thing 3 times. We're doing 3 generations, uploading those 3 images, and then we're returning that. And that gets returned to the front end. And then the front end shows those 3 images. You give it a name, and then you proceed to the next step, which then would be to generate this kind of story workflow. All right, but before we do that, I do want to say, so we called out to this up in the enhanced step. So we called out this character writer. So did Mastra, we got an agent, which is this character writer agent. Let's actually look at what that agent does. So we have this character writer agent, and the system prompt it's pretty basic agent here. We just gave it a name. We gave it a system prompt, which is a set of instructions, and we're just using 4.0 mini for this. All right, so you're a skilled character designer who excels at transforming simple character descriptions into vivid, detailed personas suitable for children's stories. Your task is to take a basic character description and enhance it with rich, specific details that will help create compelling visual representations. So these are the guidelines that I give it. Maintain the core essence of the original character description. Keep the details appropriate for a children's story ages 4 to 8. avoid scary or unsettling elements. If I didn't include that, there were sometimes it got a little dark. I want to avoid that. Include at least one unique, memorable visual element that sets the character apart. So I wanted each character to have some kind of flair, whether it's like a hat or a scarf or something. So I wanted to tell the model to give the character something that then will be repeated across all the pages, so it looks kind of unique, but it also, you can tell that it's the same character throughout. And then include at least, ensure all added details support and enhance the character's role. Make sure the description is not too long. Limit it to 2 sentences. Do not give the character a name. So some of the time they would like print the name on the character or do, interesting thing, or it would generate a name in the story. So we just didn't want to have a name because we're going to let the user give it a name. And so we don't want it to, sometimes you'd pass in the character description, which would have the name of the character, and then the user gave it a name and it would throw off the story creation. So yeah, so that's the prompt. And then again, maybe it'd be a good idea. So for those of you that are just joining, I'm going to walk through those steps. So now we can see, let's do another story. You can kind of see how the code works. You'll see how it kind of ties together. And again, all this is open source. So I will share what those are. Those links are too. So you can see it and you can then decide, if you want to pull it down, try it out yourself. So let me share my screen again. Okay, so this is the front end of the site, Mastra-AI/Fable frames on GitHub. And here is the actual, the AI agent backend, which again has the workflows and the agents that I was just showing. And if we go through another example, let's create another one. Let's do like this watercolor example. That's kind of cool. Let's go. Let's see. What do we want to do? A cuddly bunny rabbit with a bow tie and a big smile. Why not? Let's see how well it listens. Let's say a blue bow tie. And so again, this is now running that character generation. And as I mentioned before, I'm not doing any workflow streaming yet. So I would spend more time on this UI, giving the user some feedback so you can kind of see that it's actually working and there's some indication. Right now, you just kind of have to wait. So if you do try it, just know that it's going to take some time for this thing to generate. And we'll give it a second. If you are just joining in, while we wait for this, if you're just tuning in, this is AI Agents Hour, but we're going on almost 2 hours now. So we've, I guess it's false advertising. But if you just joined us, we have talked through some AI news at the beginning. We met Marvin from the Mastra team who talked through how to build or what he's building. And he talked through some of our development playground that we have within Mastra, some of the changes that are coming with that. He showcased our Mastra Cloud dashboard a little bit. We talked with Ward about workflow streaming, which you can see from this example, I do need. And we also talked through some of the breaking changes that are coming up tomorrow with the new Mastra release. And now we are going through a storybook time example that I built over the last month or so, just kind of on some off time. But it's something I've been thinking about for a while. And finally, now the models have gotten good enough to where you can actually build something pretty compelling. All right. We can see here, we now have our storybook characters. Which one do I want? I'm going to go ahead and select this little gray one here. And let's see. I'm going to call him, he's a bunny. I like alliteration, so Billy the bunny. I am not very clever. If you have better ideas, please share them in the chat, in the comments. And then I get to create a story. So Billy the bunny. Let's see. What do we want Billy the bunny to do? Has a tough first day at school, but his parents sure help him understand again, not being very creative, but we'll see how it does with this. I find there are tricks to even creating the story, of course, just like there's tricks with how you write your prompts. The goal, of course, is to try to not make there be tricks. It should just work for everybody. But we'll see how this does. And again, I'm going to let this run and let's walk through what's actually happening now in this workflow. So this is the second example we've seen, but I think it's useful now for us to take a look at the code and we can see how it's actually doing everything. All right, so we have this story workflow. And I like to look at the bottom, see what's happening here. It's a pretty simple workflow. Generate story pages, generate page images, and then combine story. So again, 3 steps. Overall, it's actually pretty simple. It's not doing too much here. So this first one is generate story pages. So I get this story generator agent, which we'll look at what that does, but I give it a prompt, create a children's story with the following character. I pass in the original character description, or the character name with the character description. The theme of the story should be, and then I pass in the actual context that I just wrote, right? That of what the story should be about. And then it's going to return an output with the title, with pages, which is each page has the string that contains the page's text. So the text of each string, that's the story that we actually saw. And then the setting. So I want it to describe the environment so that we can kind of pass that setting in later. I believe that's how I use that. So we call the story generator agent with the prompt and with the output, and then we just return this so it passes it on to this future step. So if we look at what this story generator agent does, you're a skilled children's story writer. Your task is to create an 8 to 12 page story based on the provided character name, lesson, and story description. And then I have some rules and guidelines of how I want it to actually follow this. And I'm using 4.0 for this. So you notice for the enhanced step, I used 4.0 mini, so it's a little faster. Writing the story, I wanted to use a slightly better model, so I'm using 4.0. All right, and now we continue on. So now we're generating the page images. And for this, I get this image writer agent. And I also am using Supabase here. So I make sure I have all the pages. I get the image writer, and then I loop through, or I go through each page, and I'm essentially calling out to this image writer to generate a detailed image for each page based on a number of things. So we can look at this prompt. So I'm telling it, passing in information of what page it is, what the text of the page, the character description, the character name, the story setting, and then based on the page text, character description, and overall story setting, create a vivid, detailed image. Ensure the image description incorporates elements from the story setting, and then we call generate with this output schema. And so the output schema, as I said here, is just the image description. And essentially, then it will get this description. Let's see here. How does this work? All right. And then we fetch the character. Oh, so I also fetch the character image URL after I get the description. So this is again, when we did the character selection part, we selected a character that we wanted. We get a URL for that. We're basically loading that in. And then I am passing this into GPT image 1 with the image file. And with this, I'm saying, create a children's storybook illustration for the character. Here's the image description. Here's the style. And then I'm getting that page back, and then I'm uploading the image here. So basically, it generated the image for that page. So you can see the image description was created previously, and then I pass the image description in, get the image, upload it to Supabase. So it's kind of similar to before, but I do this for every page, right? So I'm doing this for 10 pages. So I'm looping through this. I'm doing a promise.all, so we kind of running them all in parallel, but it's generating all the pages, uploading those, and then we move to the combined story step, which all this really does is it just kind of takes all the previous results and compiles it so we get one nice object with the title, the setting, all the pages with the text and the image. And this is just so when it passes that to the front end, I have a nice object to work with. And so it just does some combining, maps it, returns the object. And then if we look at what is actually happening with this workflow, again, I need to pass in when I called this, the character prompt, the character image URL, the character name, the style, and the theme of the story, which is basically what the user prompt entered for what kind of story they want to generate. And then, as mentioned before, it just goes through those 3 steps sequentially. So if we go back, hopefully our story is done now. Let's see. It looks like it is. All right, so Billy's Bright School Adventure. I'm not going to read this one to you. I've already read the last one, and we're coming up on time, but you can read it pretty quickly. I'll just flip through the pages. Looking for, hopefully I see the blue bow tie on all the pictures. Talking about being brave. Met a friend, Daisy. So here's where, again, so I'll point out some of the things that if I were to spend more time on this, I would improve. So one of the things I would do is I'd focus on secondary characters. This would make the workflow a lot more complex, but if the story contained significant secondary characters, I would generate a character image for them and then pass that into ImageGen as well. So this character here is not going to be the same on every page. But if I did break that out, I could kind of like force it to know that this is the secondary character and this should show up the same, right? So it's not a different character. Or there are probably other ways too. If I would just to pass in a detailed description of the secondary character, you could probably also get something that's pretty good, much faster without having to do extra image generation, which can be costly. So that's another alternative of what I would do if I spent more time on this, trying to get secondary images in there. And yeah, you can see this at 8 pages. It's it works. It's generated. There's some. Oops, I don't need to do that. There's some things I would improve if I were to spend more time on it. I'll post this in YouTube. So if you want to see that story, you want to click on the link, go to the Mastra YouTube channel, go to this live video, I guess. And if you're watching it later, go to the comments down below, and you'll see that the image is there. You can play around with it. Try some of these out on your own. I'll keep it up for a while. If the token count goes too crazy, I will have to scale it back or shut it down. But hopefully you all have some fun building some things. Again, if you want to take a look at this actual code, let me share that one more time. It's all open source on GitHub. Mastra-AI Fable-Frames or Mastra-AI Fable-Frames-Mastra for the backend. So you can see how I'm interacting with the front end and the back end together. The front end is deployed to Vercel, I believe. Yeah, it looks like it's deployed to Vercel. The back end we have deployed to Mastra Cloud. And yeah, it all works pretty seamlessly together. All right, everyone, and that is it for today. So thank you for those who have joined us, for all the comments we got in the chat. Thank you. And we do this every day, Monday through Friday. We don't normally go this long. Sometimes we do, but we normally go around an hour, sometimes a little longer. Today we went around 2 hours because we had a lot of great content. we spent the first bit of time talking about some of the great things that are happening in AI, or specifically around AI agents. The thing that's most exciting for me that I'm very interested in trying out is GitHub's new code agent, where you can basically, looks like you can just give it a task, which is a GitHub issue, and it will create a PR for you. That's going to be pretty cool. I want to try it out. I don't expect it to be perfect, of course, but I do want to see what it's capable of. Seems very cool. Kind of similar in some ways to OpenAI's Codex, which we talked about last week and we talked about a little bit earlier. We did meet some Mastras. We talked with Marvin about what he's working on. We saw a demo of some of the new changes to the Mastra Dev Playground. We saw a demo of Mastra Cloud, which is in beta. You can request access by going to our website and clicking the request access button. We then talked to Ward about workflow streaming, which if you just watch the storybook example, you could see that I desperately need workflow streaming to make my UI and UX significantly better. We talked with Ward through some of the breaking changes that are happening in our release tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. And then we walked through this storybook example. So if you probably saw me go through it, build a couple stories, walk through the Mastra workflows and Mastra agents that made that possible. And we will be coming at you again tomorrow. We will have some more guests. We'll have more guests in throughout this week. If you have someone interesting that's building AI agents or has interesting things in the AI world to talk about, send them my way. Always looking to have new guests on the show. If you haven't, give us a star on GitHub. Go to Mastra-AI on GitHub and go to the Mastra repo. Give us a star, please. And please follow me on Twitter or X, smthomas3. I do this every day. Normally, Abi is with me. Abi will be back shortly. He's traveling from Japan to other parts of Europe to see some of the other people on the Mastra team, but he should be joining in more frequently in the near future. And if you do want, one last pub, if you want Principles of Building AI Agents, if you want this book that our other co-founder, Sam, wrote, go to Mastra-AI/book. You can get a digital copy. If you want a physical copy, we're going to start giving some of these away on the live stream. Not today, but I got to figure out how to do it. But we're going to start giving some away. And so you can sign up for chances to win. We'll send out some physical copies of the book as well, just for fun. And that's it. We'll see you next time.